Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking about my favourite books of 2016 so far. I have chosen 5 books to talk about today. They are incredible and I have read some really great books this year, but these ones were real standout and it didn't actually take me that long to decide on 5 to share with you. So that's really great because I have read so much and I thought that choosing would have been really hard, but it wasn't. They are all favourites and chosen from around 70 books, but I'm going to go from least favourite to favourite. But least favourite doesn't mean I didn't like it just means it wasn't as good as the most favourite one, if that makes sense. So number 5 on my list is Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. This is a collection of letters that Rainer Maria Rilke, who was a poet, sent to a man who had written some poetry and sent it off to him to kind of be critiqued on it. And Rainer Maria Rilke offered some amazing writing advice, and the letters span a number of years when they corresponded. The letters in there are articulate and offer some great advice if you are a writer or you're just interested in hearing some life advice from a poet. It is highly recommended from me. When I was reading this, I had to stop myself from reading it all in one go because it is a short book, but I really wanted to take in the words and make them mean something to me. So I loved this so much and it is one of the Penguin Little Black classics. My 4th favourite book of the year so far is another one that I read towards the 2016 Classics Challenge. It's not one I expected to read this year, but I am so incredibly happy that I did, and it is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. The Bell Jar tells the story of a girl called Esther Greenwood who is in New York City around the 1940s and 50s for an internship at a fashion magazine, and then it recounts her breakdown, her mental breakdown. And I think the thing I found most fascinating was how mental health treatment is different now to how it was then, because the instinct then was to give everyone with mental health problems electric shock therapy, and that is something that happens in the book. I loved this and it meant so much to me. I felt when I was reading it like I was less alone, like some of the feelings I've had in the past are valid and other people have them too. And I loved The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, but I think this one is a lot better. They are quite similar but also very, very different. The Catcher in the Rye has whiny Holden Caulfield and I love Holden, but Esther in The Bell Jar is a fantastic character to follow about, to find out where she is coming from. I almost want to reread this now because I can't remember everything that went on in it, and that makes me really sad because I just wish I could get it imprinted in my brain because of how immense some of the words are and how well Sylvia Plath crafts her writing. She's also a fantastic poet. I have read some of her poems this year. I'm actually writing a book that was inspired by one of the lines in the poem, so Sylvia Plath means a lot to me. I am going to be talking about her a lot more in my channel in the future. The rest of the books I have to show you are YA books, and the second and third, actually there's not much difference in there, so I'm just going to show you them based on where they are in my stack. So the third book I want to show you is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Alice Oseman's debut novel was Solitaire, which was my favourite book of 2014, but I actually think that this one is better than Solitaire. I did not think that was possible at all, but it was. I read this really quickly because I could not put it down, and it tells the story of a girl called Frances who is trying her hardest to get into Cambridge University. Things are getting pretty stressful with school, and I can really relate to that because I've had exams and I have always hated school. This is something, you know, I have hated just being stuck in the school environment, and I've wanted to get out for so long. And some of the feelings that Radio Silence explored were so familiar to my own experiences. It did make me feel less alone. I also love how Alice writes her characters. They feel so real. And my favourite character in Radio Silence is called Alid, who is so cute. I just want to give him a hug. Yeah, I love him so much. And I think another standout thing about Alice's books is the way that she writes romance, and actually how romance doesn't feature that heavily for the main characters, which I like a lot because a lot of YA is like, yes, let's have a lovely summer romance. But Alice takes a side that actually not every book needs romance in. And although romance is part of teenagers' lives, it's not part of every teenager's life. So I liked that a lot about Radio Silence. Then my second favourite book of the year so far is How Hard Can Love Be by Holly Bourne. Holly Bourne's Spinster Club trilogy is incredible and I recently finished it and will have a review of the whole trilogy up on my channel soon. But this is the second book in the trilogy and I loved it. It is set in America America, and I don't think it's very common to have a UK book set in the US, so that was really good to read about. It was really refreshing, and I love the main character Amber. I love her so much. There was really great romance, but also bringing in the feminism to romance, which I liked a lot. Holly Bourne's books are so relatable, and I would recommend them to absolutely everyone. If you haven't read Am I Normal yet, which is the first book in the trilogy, you definitely should, and then you can read this one, because you will not regret picking up this series. You'll probably read them all in one go, because I know I'll be doing that when I reread them. Okay, drum roll please. It is time for my favourite book of the year so far, and it is a real standout one for me. I have reread it about 10 times already, and I only read it a month ago, and it is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. It's not very often that I choose a sequel as one of my favourite books. I don't really like choosing sequels. I'd rather just choose the first book in a series, but I had to choose Akamath because it is the best thing ever. I liked the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, but this is phenomenal. And I did a review of the first book, but I watched it back and all my feelings have changed because the progression from the first book to the second book is huge. And I love Sarah J Maas's character development and the plot development, and how actually her books are all very separate things happen in them, but they add together to tell a much larger story. I read this in a few days and don't think I spoke to anyone when I was reading it, and refused to do anything because I had to finish it. And it has been my pleasure to recommend it to as many people as I can, and I've loved talking to my friends about it now that they are reading it too, because the first book was good. It was pretty decent. This one is so good. Like, I cannot reiterate that enough. If you liked ACOTAR, you will fall head over heels in love with A Court of Mist and Fury. This series definitely is for older readers, and I don't like to say that because, you know, I was a young person reading books that were a lot older than what I was supposed to be reading at the time, but there are very sexually graphic scenes in these books that, you know, might be kind of uncomfortable for younger readers. So if you are slightly younger, then you might want to hold off, but I'm not saying do hold off because I'm never gonna dictate what you should or shouldn't read. But there are sexual scenes in here that could be uncomfortable, but I think that they are what Sarah J Maas does the best, giving female characters the power to choose sexual relationships and portraying that it is okay for female characters to have sexual relationships, because sometimes that is not clear in YA. Sometimes it's almost just the female character goes along with it, it's kind of what's expected, but in this, the Feyre, the main character, makes her own choices, and I loved that about it. So those were my favourite books of 2016 so far. I'm really interested to watch this back at the end of the year and see if these are still on here. I think they might be, but last year I did this in the middle of the year, and by the end of the year some of the books weren't on there. Let me know in the comments below some of your favourite books that you've read so far this year, and I will see you guys soon. Happy reading!